The infinite scroll is designed to bypass your conscious mind. It locks your eyes into a rapid rhythm, feeding you a chaotic stream of shifting colors, moving images, and disconnected thoughts, until time simply disappears. Social media platforms engineer this exact state on purpose. They operate on a loop of quick dopamine hits, using likes, comments, and endless novel content to keep the brain engaged and hunting for the next microscopic reward. Yet, despite billions of dollars spent perfecting this psychological trap, a growing demographic of users are quietly walking away, and they are doing it without the agonizing struggle of a forced digital detox. Instead of deleting apps in a moment of frustration and white-knuckling through withdrawal, these people experience something different. The posts and the feeds slowly stop feeling exciting, fading into a blur of predictable background noise. This effortless exit happens because the brain undergoes a psychological decoupling. The algorithm hasn't changed, but its ability to hijack the user's mind experiences a complete systemic failure. To understand why this system breaks down, we have to look at biology. The human brain is essentially a highly adaptive pattern recognition machine. When you scroll for years, your brain absorbs millions of data points. It catalogs curated images, the repetitive structure of viral trends, and the predictable cadence of outrage. This chart shows the relationship between predictability and pleasure. As the predictability of content climbs higher, the neurochemical reward plummets, creating a severe dopamine tolerance. When that dopamine reward drops to zero, the physical act of scrolling is stripped of its biological hook. The user simply stops caring. This is the brain's biological defense mechanism, neutralizing the platform's primary chemical weapon. With the dopamine fog lifted, the user becomes aware of the psychological friction the platform generates. They start noticing the constant, involuntary comparison to curated, perfected lives. Exposing the mind to this endless cycle of comparison demonstrably lowers a person's baseline satisfaction with their own life. Next is information overload. A mind bombarded by thousands of opinions, trends, and data points experiences severe cognitive exhaustion. To relieve this fatigue, the brain instinctively builds a boundary. It prioritizes clarity, naturally filtering out the loudest sources of mental noise. Social media is usually the first casualty in this process. Stepping back becomes an act of mental self-preservation to protect depleting cognitive energy. Getting off the dopamine treadmill and shielding the mind from cognitive fatigue leads to the final phase of this decoupling. The user shifts away from relying on likes and views. They develop intrinsic self-worth, a state where psychological confidence is generated entirely from within. Possessing this internal stability renders the act of posting your life for external validation completely unnecessary. There is nothing left to prove to a digital audience. A profound shift in emotional maturity follows. The individual begins to value the quiet reality of their day-to-day life over the effort required to curate it for public attention. The old habit of oversharing online begins to feel actively uncomfortable. A strong desire for personal privacy and solid boundaries takes over. This ultimate exit from the platform is driven by upgrading to a psychological value system that code and algorithms cannot satisfy. The users who reach this state haven't necessarily uninstalled the apps or declared a grand departure. The platforms have simply been rendered entirely irrelevant to their daily lives. The vacuum left behind by hours of passive digital consumption is organically filled by the pursuit of active, tangible experiences. They invest their newly recovered time into building real-world skills and nurturing physical relationships, making the prospect of staring at a screen feel like wasted hours. Outgrowing social media is a natural maturation. By cultivating intrinsic worth and stepping out of the comparison loop, you allow your psychology to evolve past the reach of the algorithm.